Alright guys, this is going to be the first video for Fashionable Mizzou. Been a long time coming. I was out of town, I was in California visiting some friends and whatnot, and I wanted to come back and be able to really put this together and make sure it's done meaningfully and it's done with purpose, and I actually put in some work for it. Today's video is going to be covering fashion and gender. I originally wanted to go to Twitter and decide first, like, what should Fashionable Mizzou do? What should I put forward when I make videos? And this is what you guys voted on when I put a poll up. So let's get to it. If we're gonna talk fashion and gender, I should probably talk about gender first. Let's see, multiple studies talk about gender in a variety of ways. Gender is, like, the mere concept of gender is a social concept. It's something we can grasp from what we do and practice in everyday life. If I were to ask you what it's like to dress like a man, you would already have an image in your head. There would be this set thing that you believe. But in truth, a man can dress however he likes. That's the part that really comes to hot topic, comes to debate. But when you think about it, you have a biological sex. Your clothes don't. In more recent years, it's become a really big topic of discussion. How fashion has come to recognize people who are not the norm. They're not following this this kind of gender-restricted set of rules that's been set out, and they themselves are free of labels in a way. And these people are being recognized. They're being talked about, and they're being put on public forums in a society where the rules of how you dress influence a lot more than you might even recognize. The funny thing about gender is that we all have an assigned gender at birth, but not everyone feels comfortable in that gender. Not everyone feels that that's who they are. And some people don't feel like they want to express their assigned gender. Maybe they feel like something else is more them, or it feels right. And beyond this simple thing, not everyone wishes to express their gender in the same way or within the confines of the gender binary. And the gender binary being, basically, if you know anything about, like, binary, bi meaning two, it's kind of saying that there is men and there is women. But the gender binary kind of has a whole, I guess you could say, a monopoly on social concepts, on social interactions. The idea that there's only men and women, masculine and feminine, when really there's a whole gray area then, if you consider how people present themselves, how they identify, and what that means in terms of, like, our world, like how we interact. So let's do a real quick review. We're all assigned a gender at birth, and it's our biological sex, but who we are inside may not correlate with that, and that's perfectly fine. How we choose to express ourselves can then reflect how we feel about ourselves or how we identify, but how we dress doesn't have to connect with who we are in our sexual orientation, our biological sex. Any way we identify as a person doesn't have to fully reflect in our dress. That being said, let's move forward. And by move forward, I mean take one step back and then go forward. Gender exists as a scientific term, but it also exists as a social term. Those are all the basic points, really. I mean, that was the last thing I wanted to emphasize, and it's only because it's important to this conversation. It's something you don't really have to agree with me on. No one has to agree with anything that I've said in this video so far, even though these are like theories, concepts, there's evidence, there's research, there's lots of people that back it up with personal experiences, there's lots of information coming at you about gender and people and who they are, how they've come to be, and you don't have to agree with any of it. But know that an open mind is like a library card, and discussions like these are like, it's like checking out 10 books at a time and having all this wealth of information to really kind of feast on. You get to learn something outside of you, and when you ignore new information, you close yourself off. You don't allow yourself to grow. You might find something within this discussion that you find relevant or interesting. You never know if you don't keep an open mind. There are a lot of people in this world who stray from the norm, and they break the norms of fashion and gender. In fact, there's models who are doing it already, and they're very successful in what they do. They have a lot of people not only supportive of them and their lifestyle, but also the way in which they interact with entertainment. In fact, models such as Jaden Smith, Casey Legler, they're prime examples of this, because you have, on one hand, you have a person of color, a man, and he's wearing skirts, he's wearing dresses, he's wearing these clothes that are labeled feminine, and he's like getting on the cover of Vogue. He's making himself almost, in a sense, a household name, because you have people talking about him who normally wouldn't care. You have these people who, they might be like, Casey Legler, who? Jaden Smith? Oh, I know Jaden Smith. And then they go, oh, they're connected. How are they connected? What's these similarities? They may go into conversations asking questions because they don't understand, but they see people. They see these people, and they want to know, why do I feel like this is different? What's different about this? In what way is normal really normal? Like when Casey Legler got her Ford modeling contract, people were like, whoa, who, what, how? What is happening? How is she, like, she's signed as a male model essentially. And because of her masculine features, because of her like layered androgyny, there is this opportunity for her to kind of change the game in a lot of different ways. And not to say that she's the only female model who's capable of being androgynous, but to have the contract was a big thing for her, and also for other models. It opens doors. There's lots of different ways to view these faces that we see in magazines. It's not just about having like this standard of beauty. It's about kind of breaking it down and saying everyone can be beautiful, but look at all these different faces and look at how they're presented. How are they like presenting themselves? This focus on how someone presents themselves, it's no longer hovering around the idea of, is that a boy or is that a girl? It's like this idea of, how do they capture that look? How is that aesthetic speaking for them? Like when you look at someone's image in a magazine, you can expect a little bit more representation. There's a lot that needs to be done to provide representation for different groups, whether that be minority groups or people within different realms of the world. But it's interesting because it's no longer a question of how is this happening, but where is this happening, and where can I find this person? Like, there's an interest in these people who are breaking gender norms and gender stereotypes within fashion. It's definitely time this happened in fashion, because quite honestly, it's getting a little boring to keep seeing the same people showing up in every magazine, showing up at every fashion show, seeing these people who are kind of, it's in the traditional sense of like even high fashion, where the model isn't a person, they're just a frame for the clothing. And the clothing is, I mean, it's fashion. So the clothing is the pivotal piece, but when you have models, your models are the connection to who's buying the clothing, who's appreciating the work. If you start designing for not just the sake of it being art, but for it to be wearable, for it to be something that can be appreciated off. But if you keep making it so that it's just art and it's not something that can be appreciated off the runway, then where do you go? Like it's a lot more. It's just really important, I think, that we have people that are walking the runway, that are appearing ads, and they're different. There's someone out there who looks at someone like Jaden Smith, and they're like, oh, I like this about him, I like this about him. He's on the cover of a magazine, he's got people interested in, and they want to know more about him. They may not understand him as a person, but they're interested in his look. I can look like that, and I can do do things that aren't the norm, and people won't just shoot me down. They'll take a minute and they'll just look at me and they'll wonder, what's going on here? What's the story? And that's really, really important, especially these days. Now, I'm not saying anything new when I'm talking about Jaden Smith and his embracing of gender fluid fashion, but think about it like this. Having these discussions is important. Like I said earlier, him being a common name in a household, like if you have a discussion about him, something in the news about him being in vogue, or him going out and he's partying and having fun with friends, but he's wearing skirts, he's wearing dresses, he's mixing and matching things, he's living that like carefree black kid life, which not a lot of black youth get to have. You see this image of someone who's happy, who doesn't care about what you have to say about what he wears, and it's, in certain ways, it's empowering, and in a lot of different ways it gets people to ask questions about what really matters. What makes what he's doing weird? Is it your like perception of what masculinity is? Is it that you may not feel comfortable with seeing a minority expressing themselves so freely? What exactly is keeping Jaden Smith in that realm of weirdness other than his own personality? Now, gender fluid, I used that term just now. I feel like I should explain it before moving forward. In summary, it's essentially a gender that changes over time, or it can vary. And one can identify as male, female, or some neutral term that involves how they see themselves. And there's a variety of ways to really go into this. I mean, I'm only roughly stating what gender fluidity is, and there's a lot of people who can express it a lot better than myself. But for the premise of this video, think of it as, instead of a gender binary where there's check this box or check this box, there's a slider. Male, female, whatever neutral term you have in between. It can be to meet a situation or how you're feeling at the time, or it can be this general expression of your gender doesn't have to really mean any one thing. It's just fluid, like water. Keeping this in mind, it really makes you think about the way the fashion industry works and how fashion is being influenced by people who are gender fluid, or they're trying to keep gender fluidity in mind when designing clothes. Now, when we talk about models who are they're showing masculine or feminine features and they look androgynous, androgyny and gender fluidity can kind of come into contact a lot, but at the same time, gender fluidity doesn't really mean when someone kind of gender bends. Because gender bending, you may see it in like artwork, or people may use the phrase when they dress up in what is presumably masculine clothing or feminine clothing. But gender bend is kind of like saying you're flipping a gender. Whereas gender fluidity isn't a switch, it's a slider. So, like, fashion in general really depends on the gender binary heavily. At least traditionally it does. There's a very, very good reason for this. I mean, good in the sense that it's economically smart. Marketing of clothing heavily depends on gender binary. So does a lot of our economy, as far as like health products, beauty products, all these things that we buy for like the daily life, including clothing, depend on gender norms to sell their products heavily. You have Old Spice, you have all these different like manly man, like you buy deodorant and it says for man. It's deodorant, man. Anyone can use this deodorant. There's no actual determinant. Anyone can like buy jeans. Anyone can buy a t-shirt. But men and women have their clothes hemmed differently to fit their body types. But in that same sense, they're marketed to also very differently. There's lots of stereotyping involved in order to get you to buy a product. There's lots of appeals made to make you buy a product. Women's jeans are a great example of this, because A lot of women complain about not having pockets or having really small, useless pockets. The fashion industry does this because you can buy bags. They want you to buy bags. They want you to buy clutches. They want you to buy these different things. They split all this marketing into men and women because if you have two whole groups you can specifically cater to instead of one massive group where you don't have a lot of divided sections that you can use to sell even more products, then you're not making as much money. Really, that's truthfully just how capitalism works with fashion. So you have this whole kind of like, I guess it's like a triangle. You have fashion, you have gender and society, and then you have like capitalism, economics, all that stuff going on. And like capitalism is benefiting off of fashion, and fashion is kind of, it's benefiting off society, and society benefits off of fashion a little bit, and they all kind of interact with each other. But it doesn't change the fact that people are still being told what's normal. They're still being marketed to very specifically. I mean, it does stink in some ways because then you have a lot of people who are restricted to what's available to them. But then on the other hand, now you have a bunch of people who identify differently, they think differently, they think about how can I fix this for myself, and then they start clothing lines, they open up stores for people like themselves, and then they get successful, and they open up ways to find new forms of clothing made available to people. Like plus size models are definitely something it's a good example of fashion that's not available, clothing that's not available to a group of people, and lots more people are coming up and trying to include plus sizes that are not only comfortable, but they look nice. You have people who are making suits for women because obviously a man's suit's going to be tailored very differently, and a very small fitted suit can be expensive, so you have people who are making these things affordable. You have people who are trying to reach to demographics that haven't been targeted before. I find all this interesting because it's like this never-ending battle. If you bring up fashion and gender and where they kind of like interact, where there's this struggle, people seem to feel odd. It's either a really big discussion about what makes money, or, well, doesn't that reflect about your sexuality? Isn't that a personal thing? Isn't your problem with fashion something to do with you and how you identify? And truthfully, sexuality doesn't have to come anywhere near the discussion of fashion. But it does. It keeps coming up because when you see these models, or even if you see a person who their fashion sense doesn't fit the gender norm, their sexuality comes into question. When someone sees Jaden Smith, they may think, oh, is he gay? Is there something, does he not? Is there something like off about him? And phrasing it like that is so, it's kind of odd, because the idea that someone who is different than yourself being off, or that the way they dress means they are a certain way, it's very presumptuous. He can be non-gender conforming. Anyone can be non-gender conforming because they want to be. You don't have to follow the rules of fashion, because the rules of fashion, just like gender, are a social concept. It only matters if someone other than you cares about it. Truthfully. People who are embracing themselves so freely, whether or not it's to do with their sexuality, whether or not they're gender queer, gender fluid, they're not conforming to social constructs because they just want to wear what they want to wear. It's good to see them getting some actual like representation, getting some show in the news and the media, even if it's on smaller platforms. It's good to see that people are connecting with each other, because really fashion is, just like I've been saying the whole time, it's a social thing. It can connect you to people just as much as it can show a representation of yourself to others around you. And I'm really happy I could talk about this at least a little bit, because when you have so many people who are ready to discuss these things, it's awesome. You get people that are opening themselves up to new experiences, to new things, to kind of growing as people, even if it's not them who's dressing up in clothing that's not the norm for someone who identifies as a man or a woman. When you have people seeing Jaden Smith and seeing Casey Legler, and they're seeing models like Rain Dove, Stas Fednan, and I butchered that last name, or Angel Hayes, it's really cool because they're popular within the demographic, people who represent them, like people who connect to them and their image. They're popular there. But when they start becoming a topic of discussion elsewhere, that means people are starting to kind of connect with the world around them. It's not just the me show all day. It's not just, I don't understand this, so I'm not going to talk about it. They're actually getting put in situations where they want to, or they're willing to learn about something outside of themselves. And that's important. And a lot of times, it's most likely something unfamiliar to them. Growth doesn't mean changing yourself. It just means learning about other things and having a new reference point. You kind of learn what you're comfortable with, what expresses you. There's no importance in upholding a gender binary. You just kind of do it based on how you feel about yourself. You dress for you. You dress for others to show yourself off. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all about representing you to yourself or to the world around you. It's about this confidence you can carry. It's about making yourself feel good and like loving it. Just loving what you wear and being able to go outside and say, hey world, this is me. How are you? Some people are afraid of what it means to explore yourself. But in the current surge of today's world, I'm hopeful. People are changing, people are opening up about their experiences, people are just excited. I'm very excited about the world that looks at fashion and gender and wants to have this conversation. It's important to really think about broadening your scope. It's increasing the size of your wardrobe potentially, and it's allowing you to really think about, who am I? What does that mean to me? How do I want to dress today? Stay fashionable, Mizzou.